Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ethanol Producer Magazine's 2019 editorial preview. My name is Tom Bryan, and I'm president and editor-in-chief of Ethanol Producer Magazine. Thanks for taking time out of your busy days to join us. Our plan this afternoon is to preview our editorial calendar for the upcoming year, giving you a look at all the topics, or themes, if you will, that we plan to cover each month, and how each theme will play out as these issues are distributed at industry events throughout the year. We call those bonus distributions, and they are every bit as important, maybe more important to our advertisers than the themes themselves. So I'm joined today by BBI International Marketing and Sales Director John Nelson, who will, in just a minute, give us a quick overview of our magazine, who we are, who our audience is, and how we reach them through various platforms, in print and online, from the magazine and website to our maps, our webinars, and more. You want to stay tuned until the end of the presentation this afternoon. We've got an exclusive discount on print advertising for all of you who have logged in today. John's asked me to say a quick few words about the state of the industry, and I think I'll, rather than trying to get a state of the industry addressed this afternoon, I've decided to talk a little bit about year-round E15 and the initiative to drop that RVP waiver. Here's what I'm seeing right now in the industry, and I'm saying this from a reporter's point of view, so please, I'd like all of you out there to let me know what you're thinking. Give us feedback. We're going to be covering this issue on a monthly basis as 2019 rolls around. What we're seeing here is that the ethanol industry is, as you all know, a pretty careful industry in terms of making predictions about higher blends, because we've been susceptible to price swings, oversupply, trade issues, and volatility. The list of things that producers worry about is pretty long, and we're a defensive industry, and I think that's made us also very cautious. But in my opinion, I don't think we should be reserved about E15. I think Trump's push for year-round E15 is a huge, huge deal, and a development that just might usher in ethanol's next big growth stage. The U.S. gas market is currently about 140 billion gallons, and that's ballpark. And we produce 16 billion gallons of ethanol right now. So about 14.5 billion gallons of that is going to the domestic market, and the other 1.5 billion gallons is exported. Again, we're talking ballpark. In the last 12 months, in fact, we have exported a record amount of ethanol, and that's probably not talked about enough. But we're supplying the domestic market at a rate of about 10.5% roughly, so we're clearly, we've broken through that E10 blend wall. That's been done. Our critics were just dead wrong about the blend wall. We've pushed past it. But they are right about one thing, the fact that E10 is fully implemented. There's no doubt about it. E10 is ubiquitous. It's a standard, widely accepted component of the U.S. gas supply. And so obviously right now with E15, there's all kinds of reasons to be, for excitement and speculation about the year-round E15 implementation and what it could mean for our industry. We've heard everything from it's no big deal, it's much ado about nothing, to it could mean 7 billion new gallons of production. So here's what we're thinking. And again, we're interested in your feedback. President Trump has started this process of allowing the year-round E15 use. There's going to be challenges, both legal and political, to this directive. And we're already seeing a heavy push to sway consumer opinion about E15, which is basically, in our opinion, pretty deceitful and ridiculous coming from the oil industry. But the fact is, the momentum towards E15 is a clear positive sign for our industry, and it represents really an enormous opportunity for everyone involved in this call. Again, in my opinion here, but if E15 eventually becomes as pervasive under gas station canopies as E10, and if ethanol exports conservatively grow to 2 billion gallons, we'll be looking at the need for perhaps 20 to 21 billion gallons of ethanol production or more, even with a decline in gas consumption that the EIA is predicting. And who knows if gas consumption will actually go down. So according to our own in-house data, U.S. ethanol producers already have the capacity to produce nearly 17 billion gallons of fuel. And that's at full throttle. So we're talking about a demand increase of roughly 3 to 4 billion gallons in the coming years, if E15 really takes hold. I know some people don't want to see E15 replace E10, but we think that's really what has to happen if it is to reach its full potential. And if it does, we're talking about the need for perhaps 30, 40, 50 new ethanol plants, or the equivalent of that, through expansions and greenfield construction. And these aren't just any ethanol plants. We're talking about, if you ask us, these would be next generation facilities that are among the lowest carbon intensive fuel production plants on Earth. So, and most of them would be capable of producing D3 cellulosic fuels. Of course, there are all sorts of reasons why this might not happen. There's worries about restrictive flex fuel labeling. There could be slower than expected retailer adoption. And of course, the possibility of an unfavorable court ruling on the RVP issue. But I think there are more reasons than not to believe E15 will become the new E10 over the next several years. It might take a long time. It might take 5, 7, 10 years. But it could give rise to a whole new era of plant construction and infrastructure build-out like we've not seen in a decade. The number of E15 stations right now is pretty small. As most of you know, it's like 1,600 stations. But it was 400 2 years ago. So it's a fourfold increase in 2 years. If we're able to quadruple the number of E15 stations every 2 years, or double it every year, we could see 100,000 stations in 6 years. So again, this is just an editor talking, just my opinion, but I wanted to throw that out to all of our supporters of the magazine and see what you guys think. Again, let us know. I realize it's a pretty ambitious vision, but not only do I think it's possible, I think it's likely. If year-round E15 gets past these big challenges in front of it and officially gains year-round acceptance. So, as the editor of Ethanol Producer Magazine, I guess that makes me pretty excited for what's to come, and I just wanted to share that vision with you. And with that, I'll hand it over to John Nelson, who will get us started with a fresh look at the magazine, the numbers we're hitting, and the ancillary products that support the brand. John, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Always appreciate the insight. I know E15 is one of those topics that is on everyone's mind within the industry, and it's an important topic, and the opportunities that it can create is outstanding. So I know it's on everyone's mind, so thank you for diving into that and giving us a little bit of insight. So we're gonna jump into kind of who reads this first slide. On this first slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about who is reading Ethanol Producer Magazine. So this particular slide is all print, and we're just talking about our print circulation and our audience breakdown. So we've got 17,000. So every issue that goes out every month of Ethanol Producer Magazine, we mail out 5,000 copies. Now, that is throughout the world. However, majority of the readers are within the U.S., as you can see. So again, if you're looking at targeting ethanol producers inside the U.S., this is the place to be. We do see an audience profile of 17,000 per issue, and that's broken out with each issue goes to future and existing producers, as well as through third-party research. We know that, after surveying our readers, we know that each issue that gets mailed out is read about 3.4 times. So that's where our numbers come from when we look at 17,000. So if you're placing an ad inside Ethanol Producer Magazine, you know that it's primarily going to be hitting producers inside the U.S., and you're going to have about 17,000 people reading that advertisement. So that's really what we're just depicting here on this slide. A couple other things that we want to break down is, a lot of people ask, well, who should be advertising? This is what I do within the industry. Should I be advertising? Well, what we're doing here is giving you a little breakdown on who typically buys an ad in Ethanol Producer Magazine. As you can see, a big chunk at 37% are equipment and supply companies. We have some process additive companies, and we also have a lot of professional services. Again, this makes sense. These are people that are saying, hey, I have a way to help you produce ethanol more efficient, or I have a service that can support you. So that's who's really advertising within the industry and going after these producers. Now, who subscribes? So if you look on the right-hand side of this slide, 23%, almost a quarter of all of our readership is an ethanol, biofuels or ethanol producer or future or existing producer. So that's the largest section of our subscriber base. Then you can also see it drops, it goes down to equipment and services, farm, consulting, and so on. So that's a breakdown of our print. Now we're going to move on to our online presence. Now this is ethanolproducer.com. So what you're going to see here is a little bit of a shift of audience. So where on our print, it was primarily inside the U.S. But what you're going to see here is we're going to start shifting outside of the U.S. a little more. Now, the majority of our viewership online is within the U.S. still. However, you can really see it starts to break down. So what we're looking at here is, let's just take a look at the left-hand side. And again, all these numbers are based off Google Analytics as of July 2018 and inside our media kits. So we do have all these details inside our media kits online, and we can dive in even deeper with those if you contact one of our account managers. But if you look on the left-hand side, you can see a breakdown of our website. You can see we have just a ton of content that Tom and his team have produced and put, on the site. Again, all those articles are being posted there with the hopes that people are reading it. They're clicking on those stories, and they're going to see your ad that's placed on there. So at the top, you can see we've got ICM sitting there, Solenis. These are skyscraper ads, leaderboard ads, rectangles, medium rectangles that you can purchase and make sure that people are seeing your brand and clicking on your ad and going to your website. So again, that's kind of how our website is broken down. Now, we see almost 60,000 page views per month and almost 35,000 unique visitors per month. So again, you're seeing this is a very niche audience, but you're seeing this is an audience that is focused primarily on ethanol. And they want to learn more about ethanol. They want to know more about ethanol. And they want to know more about the companies that are servicing and the efficiencies that are happening. Again, this is our ethanol producer focused content, and that's what they want to learn about. So if you have an ad and you want to place it on here, you know that you're hitting that audience. Again, when I go to the right side and you look at where people are coming from onto the website, our traffic, you can see it's all over the world. It's not just within the United States. So if you're looking at, hey, I want to hit the US, but I also want to hit some international, we really recommend saying, hey, let's do some print, make sure you've got a strong presence with the producers inside the US, but we can also make sure you're getting you're really being strategic with building your brand outside the U.S. within the industry, and by adding in more digital aspects to that. Again, what I want to look at here is when you look at the social media. Now, you're probably wondering, why do you have Twitter on there, Facebook, LinkedIn? Well, what we're showing you here is we have a very active program that every story that Tom and his team produce on ethanolproducer.com gets posted to our Twitter account, to our Facebook account, to our LinkedIn account. And why is that important? Well, people are seeing it. You can see we have 6,000 some followers on Twitter alone. Well, people see those stories and they click on it. You can see we have referrals over more than 8,000 network referrals going back to our website from Twitter. We're very active about that. We're very active about growing our brand on our social media sites. And again, as an advertiser, that's important to you because people are seeing those stories, they're clicking on the stories, they're coming back to our website, and hopefully they will see your ad that you placed on ethanolproducer.com. So a couple other ancillary products that we have within Ethanol Producer Magazine is our newsletter. So every week, again, Tom and his team produce stories, original content on ethanol, and over the years, we have grown this subscriber base to 19,000 plus subscribers. And again, this is through organic, we've built this list organically. So it's a very targeted list. Everyone on here wants to get this newsletter. And so people will click on it and read the stories that Tom and his team are producing. Now, this is a very cost-effective way to jump in. So if you're saying, John, I want to start advertising, but I don't have a lot of money, well, this is a great way to start. At $295, you can get on this newsletter. You can also track who's clicking on that newsletter and get some analytics. So again, it's a very cost-effective way, and I would talk to one of our account managers about this if you're interested in placing an ad on our weekly e-newsletter. Another sponsorship opportunity that we have is we are now producing weekly videos. Now, these weekly videos talk about the top stories that are happening each week within the industry. And as everyone knows, online, anything placed in a video gets more viewership. So these videos are posted online. They're posted in our e-newsletter. So they get the eyeballs, from both those platforms, both our e-newsletter and our website, as well as posting them online, just over the internet as well in Google searches. So you're getting a lot of eyeballs for not a lot of money by becoming a video sponsor. And so you get a commercial at the beginning of these. By becoming a sponsor, you get a commercial at the beginning of these videos, and you're able to talk about your products and services to our audience. So moving on to the webinars. So much like today, we are doing a webinar, and you can see we've got an example of a webinar here by Keiko, and these are custom webinars. And so you can say, hey, I want to sponsor a webinar, John, and we want to talk about this topic, and you get to work with an editor or writer from Ethanol Producer Magazine, and we get to create the topic. We get to create the speaker lineup with you, and that is promoted on our website, on our emails, and in addition to that, you also get information of all the registrants on there. So it's a great way to get your name out, get your brand out, and again, that's very cost effective. So if you're saying, John, I need some direct marketing results now, this is where I would direct you, and it's a great way to get both advertising and results right away. A couple of last things I want to mention here is our custom content. So if you've been lucky enough to have a story or contributed or have a story in Ethanol Producer Magazine or have contributed to Ethanol Producer Magazine, we have the ability to create custom reprints for you. Now, they're very inexpensive, but you can get these custom reprints produced, with your particular article on it, with Ethanol Producer Magazine on it. You can mail it to potential customers. We'll send it to you in a PDF. You can email it out. You can use it at trade shows. Again, it's important to have these materials because they add credibility, or if you're looking for potential investors, these are great marketing pieces for you. So if you're looking to have that credibility, that piece, definitely contact us and we can produce that custom reprint for you as well. Now, new this year, I'm going to move to the right here on custom press releases. New this year to Ethanol Producer Magazine are what we call our custom press releases. So if you have a product or a service that you're saying, John, I really want to showcase this particular service and I want to get out to your news feeds and your lists, we can, you can create a press release. We can post it online. We can send it out to our email lists of 19,000 plus on our news feed, and we can send that out. We can also custom write the press release for you as well. There is an option where we're able to do that for you as well. So again, there's some options here, some new options that we're presenting to potential advertisers that we think you definitely want to take a look at and might be interested in if you're looking to promote your company to the ethanol industry. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Tom.
Okay, thanks, John. Every time I see that data, I just am really impressed by the breadth of what Ethanol Producer Magazine has become, and really thankful for the support we get from all of you listening today. So here at EPM, we really build our magazine around the motto that we should be informing producers, helping ethanol plant managers run their plants better, more efficiently, profitably, safely. And we're aided in that mission immensely by our editorial advisory board. I want to mention them not by name, but just drop a note about the folks that help us. Currently, our board is comprised of 8 ethanol plant CEOs and general managers who really provide us with a wealth of knowledge and steer our editorial pursuits every month. Our editor, Lisa Gibson, leans heavily on our advisors for insight, and I think it really pays off. So I just wanted to mention that. So just taking a look here at the contents page, or a rendition of one of our contents pages, you can get a feel for the kind of diversity of subject matter that we cover every month. And I wanted to show this mainly because it does display some of the themes that we pursue on a monthly basis, but it also shows you that we're not wed to any one theme, and there's room in the magazine every month for off-theme stories. In fact, in this issue that you're looking at now, the cover story was on low-carbon fuels, but we also had pieces on automation. We had a piece on improving employee morale in the plant, and another piece on how labs are facing greater and greater pressures to produce the correct data for co-products. So this is a great example of an issue that covered 4 or 5 different subjects within that same issue. And I wanted to mention that because sometimes companies out there won't see a theme that appeals to them directly, and we want you to know that you can always pick up the phone and call us or email us and let us know if there's something your company wants to share with our readers, or if it's time to report on some project that you're involved with. So please keep us informed when you need us. If we could move on now to our 2019 editorial highlights. We're going to jump right into the themes. I should mention that Ethanol Producer Magazine always has 2 themes each month. Sometimes those themes are complementary, and other times they're almost totally unrelated. We don't really apply any rules to this. We simply try to come up with a broad mix of magazine themes that are relevant, fresh, and to the right extent, pretty technical. So January. The January issue of EPM will be distributed at the Iowa Renewable Fuels Summit and also the Energy Generation Conference in North Dakota. Our principal theme is ethanol plant security and surveillance. This is a new one for us. We're actually working on this story right now. And, in this day and age, there are just so many reasons to safeguard ethanol plants, or for that matter, any industrial facility, from both physical intrusion and cyber intrusion. So these protections, which can range from good old-fashioned gates and locks to surveillance cameras, apps, drones, all of these things are being employed now to keep producers one step ahead of anyone who might intentionally damage or vandalize a facility, commit a theft, or simply wander onto the grounds and cause a safety risk. So while this story is very specific, our advisors really liked it, and they've given us a few leads to pursue, so we're on this one right now. We'll also be doing a spotlight on Iowa in January, and this is a way for us to really recognize Iowa companies that are serving the ethanol industry, and we'll also highlight current production trends in the state and maybe take a look at what's happening on the ground there with E15. So if you're a supplier or service provider with headquarters or offices in Iowa, remind us, let us know, because we're working on the story right now and we really want to reach out to you. Let's move on to February. So with the advancing age of our ethanol plant fleet, the plants are getting older, 10, 15 years old, many of them. Tank farm and loadout area improvement is the sort of subject, while again very specific, it's the sort of subject that we need to be addressing more often. It's these types of projects that really keep producers ahead of the curve on long-term asset management. And the same goes for loading systems. There's a lot of new technology out there that producers are applying. I think the plants, we're seeing a lot of them reinvesting in these sort of projects, and we just want to shed some light on those in the February issue. Our other theme in February is low carbon fuels, policy, and markets. Now, this is a subject that we just covered recently, but I think our initial reporting asked as many questions as it maybe answered. So we're going to circle back to this subject, just dig into it a little deeper, and really look at the mechanics of how these low carbon fuel marketplaces, particularly on the West Coast, how they assign ethanol plants those carbon intensity scores. I think we kind of owe it to the readers to lay that out. So that's what we're going to do in February. We'll be distributing this issue at the Growth Energy Executive Leadership Conference and also the National Ethanol Conference. Those are two of our most important bonus distributions of the winter season. And we'll also be distributing it at the Commodity Classic as well. March. In March, we'll feature a couple of what I'd call perennial subjects here. Well, this isn't really the subject of dinner parties, yeast and biofilm. It is the kind of thing that's vital to our industry's ability to reach those higher yields and also meet our quest to commercially transform cellulosic feedstocks into ethanol. So with yeast, innovation, and performance as our theme, we'll take a look at things like stress tolerance, glycerol reduction, companion enzymes, and other strategies for achieving optimal fermentation, yield, and product quality. Likewise, with bacteria and biofilm control, we think that complements the yeast theme, because in order for plants to achieve those optimal fermentations and yield, they really have to be on top of their microbial control game. This issue will be mailed to everyone who attends the National Ethanol Conference, so it's a great way to double back with that audience after the show. April. Here again in April, we're pursuing two themes that I'd say are pretty complementary: plant cleaning and response, and also maintenance, with a maintenance hook being on technology, software, and apps. I think this is really the new frontier of preventative and predictive maintenance. Technology is really allowing producers to take most of the guesswork out of their asset management, and that's what we're going to highlight. So also the plant cleaning and emergency response theme, it does show up almost annually in our publication, and I'd say for good reason. There's just so much to cover, whether it's bin cleaning or confined space entry, safety procedures, or shutdown cleaning, and how they blast vessels with those various medias. There's always something new and innovative to share. So will be our secondary theme in April. And the April issue will be distributed at the International Biomass Conference and Expo, which is the largest biomass event in North America, nearly 1,000 attendees, and an entire track dedicated to advanced biofuels. It will also go to the AOCS conference and Sugar and Ethanol Brazil too. May. In May, we'll dive into high protein co-products and also aquaculture. With the advent of new technologies, especially including corn fiber to ethanol, we're seeing more high protein co-products enter the market, even these super high protein co-products. So we'll take a close look at the technologies behind these and the appetite for them globally. The second theme here, aquaculture, we've covered this in the past. It's kind of out there, but on a tip and a whim, we're including this as one of our themes because we're intrigued with it, and we're intrigued particularly with the role that American ethanol plants can have in the aquaculture industry's future. In the past 12 months alone, we've seen several well-known ethanol companies, including those in Nebraska, North Dakota, and Minnesota, and elsewhere, jump into the aquaculture business in one way or another. So it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I think it's worth some of our editorial time. This issue will go to the Distillers Grains Technology Council annual meeting. It's a good fit. And also, it will be delivered to the hotel rooms of all those who attend the FEW in Indianapolis. Let's move on to June. So in June, we'll revisit corn fiber to cellulosic ethanol. As most of you on the call know, several companies are now advancing production technologies related to extracting ethanol from corn fiber. And we're actually working on a story right now about Ace Ethanol's installation of one of those technologies in Wisconsin, which is in the early stages of construction. So I think what makes reporting on these corn fiber projects so interesting is the fact that, as it looks now, all of these projects are so unique. They all end up being very different from one another. That's what we're seeing. And so each plant could incorporate different elements into these projects based on their own individual setup, their constraints, their ROI expectations, and especially their co-product needs. And I think that's what we're going to try to uncover with that story in June. Also, we will be doing a rundown on all of the winners of the 2019 Ethanol Producer Awards. We launched these awards last year, announced them at the FEW, and they were really well received by everyone involved. So we're looking forward to doing that again next year. This issue will be, of course, distributed at the FEW, the International Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo. That's our conference, and it is the longest running ethanol conference in the world, as most of you already know. Let's move on to July. So I really like what we're planning here. We're just calling the first theme efficiency, water, chemicals, and energy, which is, a way of just putting a placeholder on the calendar for stories about input reduction. Virtually, every plant has made great strides in reducing their inputs over the years as the industry has matured, and it's really, I think, one of our industry's great success stories. So greater yields and more production with less energy, less water, and generally less chemical inputs. And there's just so many ways that this is being achieved, whether it's more effective enzymes or cogen or leak detection. Plants are doing zero liquid discharge. We want to tell some of those stories with this July issue. We're also going to do the 2019 Ethanol Compensation and Job Satisfaction Survey. We do this very popular salary survey every 2 years. Our readers really like it. They wait for it and they appreciate it. And, as all the surveys have showed in the past, I'm sure this one will be the same. We always find that American ethanol plants have employees that are highly paid and relatively and generally pretty happy in their careers. The findings are usually similar, but we always find some unique things too, and we're pretty candid about reporting on areas that the industry can improve on. And I'm sure that'll be the same this year. It's a big editorial project. It's a lot of work to do this, but it's definitely worth the effort on our part. This issue will be mailed to all the FEW attendees, so it's a good way maybe to reinforce your messaging from the FEW, or even, you could even thank some of the producers for visiting your booth in Indianapolis. Let's move on to August. In August, we'll cover boiler optimization, repair, and refurbishment. This is kind of an old school topic, similar to tank farm. The tank farm theme in February. It's a nuts and bolts sort of thing. We're going to look closely at how ethanol producers operate, maintain, and manage their heat and power systems, whether it's annual tune-ups, maintenance, or even in those emergency situations, and how the vendors, service providers respond and work with them in those times. And then we'll be doing a spotlight on Nebraska, again, really focused on celebrating those Nebraska-based companies serving and supplying the ethanol industry. This issue will be distributed at the American Coalition for Ethanol Conference in Omaha in August, so we feel like it's a great time to do this with our magazine being distributed at the show. September, we're going to jump into emissions abatement equipment and also regulatory compliance, two very related topics in September. That go hand in hand. There are companies in this industry that have been doing VOC and HAP control for 10, 12, 15 years now. They've been at this a long time, and they've amassed a real trove of knowledge about clean air technology. So I'd like to find out if these systems are changing, and if so, are producers upgrading equipment? Are they changing out RTOs and so forth that were installed a decade ago? That's a question that we're going to investigate in September. The regulatory compliance component of this is really just a blank slate kind of theme that allows our reporters to reach out to industry consultants and EH&S professionals at plants and just ask them what we should be covering. Let's move on. This issue will be distributed at the Growth Energy Biofuels Summit, the fall summit. October's themes are lab tech and an update on E15, the E15 marketplace. These are unrelated topics, both great topics. The ethanol plant lab is really so central, as you all know, to the ethanol to ethanol production nowadays, and we've covered that pretty extensively in the past in terms of how labs are being leaned on more and more for quality control, for data, and for compliance purposes as well. But I think while we've maybe exhausted that part of our coverage over the last couple of years, I don't think we've exhausted our coverage of the equipment and technology that's used in these labs. We've done some reporting, but I think we could do more and really look into the technology and whether or not it's changing in the labs across the country. And then we have an update on E15. I talked about the potential of E15 earlier. Again, a vision that you may or may not agree with. Might have been a little ambitious, but one I hope we see happen. But the truth is we have a long ways to go before we get to that point. There's, like I said, there's some 1,600 stations selling E15 right now, and we need to increase that number dramatically in the coming years if we really want that higher blend to make a difference. So we'll stay on top of that as reporters here at EPM and cover it year in and year out. This issue will be distributed at the Biofuels International Conference and Expo, and also the Fuel Ethanol Lab Conference, which is a great fit, of course, for that lab technology theme. November. In November, we'll cover data-driven optimization and in-seed corn innovation. The first being a broad topic, the second being very specific. For the past few years, we've been sort of all over this data trend, documenting how producers are capturing production data however they can to improve their operations, whether it be through their DCS, through their lab, or elsewhere. So we'll revisit data optimization. And in-seed corn innovation is really, it's really a nod to one particular company that you all know rolled out in-seed enzyme technology a few years back. And they're delivering that alpha amylase directly in the grain itself. So now it's being used in ethanol plants representing some 3 billion gallons. And I think it's a good time to catch up with that company and really explain just how far they've come with it. It's a big deal, and we, again, owe it to our readers to be on top of that subject. This will be distributed at the FOLIX World Ethanol and Biofuels Conference, which has about 500 attendees, so good bonus distribution there. And finally, December. We're going to end the year with a look at export markets for each of our principal products, that being ethanol and distillers' grains, and also try to think big about the bright future of high-octane fuels globally. There's been all kinds of talk over the last couple of years about ethanol being the lowest cost source of octane on the planet, and the fact that the world's appetite for octane is really expected to skyrocket in the years ahead. So we're going to try to unwrap that prediction and really explain how and why the world might look to U.S. ethanol to fulfill its octane needs moving forward. And this issue will be mailed to all non-subscribers who attend one of our webinars like this one. That number will be in the hundreds, if not over 1,000 people. All right, I guess we got through that pretty quickly. I want to thank today's sponsor, again, the Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo, our big ethanol conference happening in June in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hope you're planning to attend. I also want to mention a couple of our webinars that are coming up. We've got a webinar November 6th, right around the corner, for the 2019 International Biomass Conference and Expo's agenda. We're going to overview that, take a look at the speakers for that conference in about a week. And later in November, we've got a webinar on distributed power generation from biomass, put on by Biomass Magazine. We've mentioned the Biomass Conference as well as the International Fuel Ethanol Workshop. And with that, finally, here is that offer we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. Every company attending today's webinar is eligible for 20% off a full-page print ad in Ethanol Producer Magazine. The offer expires January 1, so please contact your BBI International sales rep as soon as possible to take advantage of that. And with that, folks, thanks for staying on the line with us. For those of you trick-or-treating with your kids, or those of you who are kids at heart, happy Halloween. Take care.